Today, we're diving into something pretty heavy: how a war happening thousands of miles away is creating this massive, devastating ripple effect across an entire continent. Let's just start with a number. Take a look at this: 45 million. So what is that number? Well, that's the estimate for how many people worldwide are now facing acute food insecurity. We're talking about people who literally can't feed themselves properly, and it's all because of a conflict that kicked off in early 2026. A war they had absolutely nothing to do with. You see, this fight, it's between the US, Israel, and Iran. The battlefields are in the Persian Gulf. But the bill? Yeah, the bill is being paid in hunger and economic collapse, and it's coming due for millions of Africans. So how does that even happen? In this explainer, we're going to trace the exact chain of events. We'll see how a war so far away is making food prices jump 20% in Somalia, and, get this, delaying life-saving food aid in places like Sudan. Okay, so where does it all begin? Well, it starts with the very first shockwave, the one that hit almost immediately: fuel. As soon as the fighting started, a critical shipping lane got shut down, and bam, the effects were felt instantly, right across Africa. And here's the thing you have to understand: Africa is a net importer of refined oil. What that means is, basically, most countries on the continent have to buy their fuel on the global market, and that connection, which is normally just how business is done, has suddenly turned into this huge, massive vulnerability. You can literally see the dominoes fall right here. It's a direct chain reaction. First, the conflict shuts down the Strait of Hormuz, a major naval choke point. Step 2, global oil prices shoot through the roof, over $100 a barrel. That means, step 3, African countries have to pay way more for the fuel they import. And finally, where does that cost go? It gets passed on to everybody, raising the price of transport and, yep, the price of the food you buy at the market. And as analysts like Nick Headley point out here, this isn't just about what you pay at the pump. It's about the cost of everything. Think about it. Food, medicine, supplies, it all has to get moved around, usually by trucks that run on fuel. So, when fuel prices go up, everything gets more expensive. This fuel shock is really the story of millions of families suddenly looking at their budgets and realizing they can't afford the week. All right, so let's dig a little deeper, because this shockwave doesn't hit every country the same way. It's actually revealing these unique economic fault lines in each nation, creating totally different kinds of emergencies. And Nigeria is such a fascinating and kind of tragic example of this. You'd think, hey, Africa's biggest oil exporter, high oil prices must be great for them. But nope, it's a paradox. See, they don't have enough refining capacity, so they sell their crude oil and then have to turn around and buy back expensive refined gasoline. The government's making a ton of money, sure, but regular people, they're getting crushed at the pump. And it's not just Nigeria. You can see how this plays out differently across the continent. Take Kenya. They're super dependent on imports, so their currency, the shilling, gets weaker. That makes all imported goods more expensive. Then you've got South Africa, where the central bank is stuck in this impossible position. Do they raise interest rates to fight inflation but risk slowing down an already shaky economy? And all this data, all these economic charts, they can feel pretty abstract. But this brings it right down to the human level. We're not just talking about models and percentages anymore. We're talking about real people, like this farmer, Elizabeth Wangwa, in Limuru, Kenya. She's stuck. The fertilizer she needs costs way more than she planned for, but she has to plant her crops. She has a community to feed, and this is a season she just can't afford to waste. But you know, the fuel shock, that was just the first wave. There's a hidden story here, a second shockwave that's even more dangerous in the long run. And it's all about fertilizer. This is the thing that could turn an already terrible crisis into an absolute catastrophe. And the whole problem comes down to this one staggering fact. Just look at this. Over 90%, 90, of all the fertilizer used in sub-Saharan Africa is imported. For the most part, it's just not made on the continent at scale. So you can think of these supply routes as the literal lifelines for Africa's farmers and their planting seasons. And here's the kicker. About a third of all the globally traded urea, that's a key nitrogen fertilizer, comes from the Gulf. And guess what? Nearly all of it has to pass through that one single point we talked about earlier, the Strait of Hormuz. And now, because of the conflict, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. That lifeline, it's been cut. And this is where the real vulnerability becomes crystal clear. Look, when there's an oil shock, countries have a backup plan, right? They have strategic petroleum reserves, basically giant emergency stockpiles of oil for exactly this kind of situation. But for fertilizer, nope, nothing. There are no international strategic stockpiles. There's no emergency backup plan. And as experts like Raj Patel have said, it's not like you can just magically find a quick substitute. When the main supply just vanishes, farmers are stuck with whatever was left over from last season. And the problem is, those stockpiles are running out right now, smack in the middle of planting season. So, let's put it all together. Let's connect these two massive economic shocks, the fuel and the fertilizer, back to that human cost, back to the number we started this whole thing with. So here we are, back at 45 million. And I want to be really clear. This isn't just some academic estimate. This is a formal, official warning issued by the UN's World Food Program back on March 19th. And that's not some vague global number where the impact is spread out evenly. No, the WFP's own data shows this crisis is hitting one place harder than anywhere else, the African continent. I mean, we're talking about nearly 18 million more people facing hunger in East and Southern Africa alone, a 21% jump in West and Central Africa. The numbers are just devastating. And this quote from Carl Scow at the WFP says it all. This is a direct warning from the top. He's saying, listen, if this conflict continues, it could be a catastrophe. A war between 3 countries outside of Africa is creating a real-time humanitarian emergency for millions of people who were already just barely hanging on. And that, right there, is really the heart of it all. One war, 45 million people, 0 votes. Africa didn't start this war. They didn't vote for it, and they can't stop it. And yet, they are the ones paying the price. They're paying with hunger, with collapsing economies, and with a fertilizer crisis that could threaten their food supply for years. So it leaves us with this one final, really difficult question. Who pays the price for wars they didn't start? Because that's the real story here, and it's happening right now.